Well, it is game week, and we have Oklahoma traveling to Cincinnati to play the Bearcats. Of course, we got a lot of excitement with that game because this will be the first Big 12 matchup, not only for the Sooners season, but Cincinnati's as a program, as they have moved to the Big 12 this year. And so I decided to go ahead and grab a special guest. He pulled up. We're going to talk about that on the side. But before we dive into the interview, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thanks for pulling up to the channel. I am so glad that you decided to spend some time with us and join us for this interview. If you like the content here, please hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We would love to have you join this family. As well as for my special guests, check them out. I got their information in the description below, and we'll dive into the game. So let's make it happen. All right, Sooner fans, we've got a special guest here on the show. We're going to talk about the Oklahoma-Cincinnati game. I know you're all excited about it. It's the first Big 12 game of the season, conference game, as well as Cincinnati's first game in their new conference. And so let's dive into what the X's and O's look like, what Cincinnati looks like, and everything. And so with our special guest here today, we got Keegan Nickoson over from the Bearcat Journal. Keegan, tell the people who you are and where they can find your great work.
Yeah, so I'm a Indiana University grad in my first year with Bearcat Journal and 247 Sports. Chad Brendel gave me the opportunity to cover my hometown team, so it's been a whirlwind, but it's been a ton of fun so far. You can find my stuff on bearcatjournal.com, 247 Sports, and then you can follow me on Twitter at knickoson42.
All right, sir. Well, we appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking time, like I said, to join us. We talked about it in the green room. I'm pretty excited about this game. First conference game. And we're going up against, this is the real test, honestly, for the Sooners. And I honestly feel like this is a really good test for you all there in Cincinnati, going up against a blue blood, as they would say, program that is infamous for being tough to play against. But one thing I'd say, I think I want to start here on the defensive side, because I feel like that's really the biggest strength here at Cincinnati. When I look at you all, the Godfather, man, Dante Corleone, all preseason All-American, beast of an athlete. Talk to me. What does it look like with that defensive front?
Well, he's definitely the biggest presence up there. And, the thing about what's next to him is you have Jawan Briggs, who is equitable in size, who is also very good. He's a 5th or 6th year veteran, also just had his 3rd kid. So that's a really, really interesting story. And if you watch the Fox broadcast before, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a story on that they kind of dive into that whole situation. So him and Dante Corleone really plug up the middle of that interior defensive line. And then Briggs is actually technically a defensive end, but he'll definitely make an impact in run defense. And then you have Daniel Greshik and Eric Phillips coming off the edge. So they've been able to stop a lot of the rush defense so far this season, but actually getting to the quarterback has been a little bit of a struggle for them. They don't have that true edge rusher that's about speed. Like when you think of Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, those kind of guys, not saying that they should have someone as talented as those two, but that kind of archetype that they really use their speed and their technical ability to get to the quarterback. But the rush defense has been a bright spot, and they've been able to put a stop to a lot of what opposing teams have tried to do in that area.
Yeah, the run defense actually does look really, really good. Not really giving up very many yards, which, I mean, that's a huge stat to have. Let me see what passing wise, giving up just under 200. Was that 200 yards a game? That's what 197 rushing, just about 109, which those are some pretty solid numbers. Just no matter who you play against. I mean, unless you were playing literally only D2 schools the entire time, maybe I'd say you're kind of just beating up on other teams. But no, you've all played some D1 schools, some schools in the football bowl series. So that shows that there's a lot of opportunity. We'll dive more into defense, but I wanted to jump into the head coach. We got Scott Satterfield coming from Louisville, first year here at Cincinnati. What has the field been bringing in Satterfield in comparison to losing Luke Fickell?
I think everyone, if UC fans were honest with you, they would definitely still wish that they had Luke Fickell, just because of the way the program was moving. They were really elevating, and he kind of really spearheaded this move into the Big 12. And what he created at UC was one of the big reasons why UC is in the Big 12 now. And obviously, AD John Cunningham was a big help in that. But Luke Fickell really got that going. So his departure was a little bit of a shock. So when you're looking at who they want to replace him with, you know, Sean Lewis from Toledo, who's now at Colorado, was an option. Jesse Minter, who's at Michigan, was thought. And then obviously Deion Sanders was thrown. That name was thrown around, but he was very committed to Colorado. And then you get Scott Satterfield, and you kind of think, okay, that's a good get. And John Cunningham, what he said is, going into the Big 12, I want a guy who has Power 5 experience to lead us into the Power 5. And he showed that he can be successful. He had a great quarterback in Malik Cunningham at Louisville. He had a lot of success at Appalachian State. So what he's kind of built so far, and the roster that he's been able to build after losing basically maybe 60% of it to the transfer portal, a lot of the really, really good players leaving for Wisconsin, they really had to tear it completely down and build it back up. And they built a roster that was able to smoke Eastern Kentucky in week 1 and then go on the road and beat Pitt. And it's really been led by Emory Jones and a lot of those talented skill players. But they were exceeding expectations, and then they had a very, very big hiccup, if you can call a hiccup big, last week against Miami of Ohio. Hadn't lost to them in about 18 years, I think it was, 17 seasons.
Ooh, yeah.
20. So that's definitely left a bad taste in the mouth of the fan base. And this week is going to be very telling of how they feel about Scott Satterfield and this team going forward.
Yeah, that's pretty big deal with the rival or whatnot, losing that game.
Yeah.
We understand. We've been there. 49-0 is all we hear about from our rival from Texas all the time, and that was a very different circumstance. But I digress.
Yeah.
I don't like to relive in the past too much. But Cincinnati is infamous for having some really good coaches, from Mike D'Antonio to Brian Kelly to Butch Jones, Tommy Tuberville, Luke Fickell, and now we got Satterfield, who's everyone. It may take them a year to kind of get everything established the way they want, but they always seem to excel. What is it about Cincinnati that seems to really attract the talent to make it to where you all seem to always propel up into those 10-win seasons on a regular basis?
Yeah, and
does Satterfield have it?
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that my boss Chad, he kind of talked to me about. He said everyone that comes here, they end up being successful. And Tommy Tuberville had some tough years, and everyone remembers him for his "go to hell, get a job" comment that he made to a fan after one of the games, and then he got fired the next week. But he won a conference championship. Butch Jones won a conference championship. And then you have D'Antonio and Kelly really, they've taken their success at Cincinnati, going to Michigan State, and then going to a dream job at Notre Dame and getting a massive contract at LSU. But I think it's, there's a lot of fans that love UC. This is a very, very big fan base. And there's a lot of positivity surrounding UC. And, it used to be a basketball school, the days of Kenyon Martin. Mick Cronin had a really, really good program there. And basketball is on the up and up with Wes Miller after a couple down years before he got there. But, there's a lot of boosters that are very invested in this program. Larry Shakely made a transformational donation, and now they're building this indoor practice facility that's going to be ready, I think, of October next year. And their goal with that was to compete with the rest of the Big 12 in terms of facilities. And when that thing's going to be built, you'll be able to compare it with the TCUs, and I think it's Texas Tech has a really good football facility. Probably everyone in the Big 12, if I'm being honest, because it's Big 12 football. But that's going to rival the rest of them, and it's going to signal to those recruits that, hey, like, we're serious about football, and we've shown a pattern of success, and especially in the past 6 or 7 years with Luke Fickell, who, which you brought it up, he went 4-8 in his first year and then turned it around, started Desmond Ridder as a redshirt freshman, and was able to have a lot of success. So even if Satterfield goes through this first year, given what happened with Luke Fickell, you have to give him a little bit of a leash, unless it's just absolute chaos and they can't do anything at all.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And so looking at this, Satterfield comes over, he brings over Brian Brown, as a defensive coordinator. He followed him from Appalachian State to Louisville. Now he's followed him here to Cincinnati. So back into the defensive side of the ball with having Corleone as well as Juwan Briggs. That defense looks like it runs a 3-3-5. Is that really the base defense? And how do you anticipate that usage in this game going up against Oklahoma and that really prolific offense that's out there right now?
Yeah, I would say the 3-3-5 would be the best way to describe it. Brian Threats at safety is having a heck of a season. He has two interceptions, and then Taj Ward at safety has 2 forced fumbles so far through 3 games. They're missing Sammy Anderson. He suffered a concussion against Eastern Kentucky, in which he was actually knocked unconscious for a very short amount of time. The thing about his situation, why it's a little bit up in the air, is because he had a similar situation at the Louisville game at the end of the season in the Fenway Bowl last year. So they have to be extra cautious with him in terms of his time to return. But they have a fifth-year starter in Justin Harris stepping up at that second DB position. And he's definitely had a little bit of trouble, but he's also had some big plays. He tied the school record for 4 pass breakups against Pittsburgh in week 2, made some huge plays in that game. But yeah, the defense is solid. They have some susceptibility to giving up big plays. Dorian Jones and Jack Dingle in the middle of that defense have really done a great job. Scott Satterfield and Brian Brown talked about, you might be familiar, they have these catapult things that they put on their chest, and it measures the speed. Jack Dingle was measured as one of the fastest players on the team at the middle linebacker position, not even comparable to, just linebackers. So wide receivers, running backs, whoever, he's measured as one of the fastest players on the team. So he can be a real difference maker. He's definitely really raw, kind of stepping into that middle linebacker spot for the first time in his career, but he's made some big plays, made pretty much a game-winning sack against Pitt on the road on 4th down late in the 4th quarter. So he's someone that's going to fly around the field, and Oklahoma fans will probably see a lot of him.
Yeah, and I was watching the Pitt game. It was Gressick? Is that how you pronounce it?
Gressick.
Yeah, Gressick. Yeah, I was watching him playing out there at edge, and it seemed like he dropped back into it felt like a linebacker the way that the game was played for him. I'm guessing he's the edge, right?
Yes, he's the prototype edge rusher. He came over from Utah State. I think he actually walked on there as a tight end, and then kind of went through the transformation into being an outside linebacker, had a great season at Utah State, and then comes over here. And he's had a long career, and he's having some success here. So I think if you're going to see someone get to the quarterback on Saturday, it's probably going to be him, unless Dante Corleone and Juwan Briggs can just really blow up that line. But I think those two are really, they're down pat. They're saying teams are not going to rush the ball against us for a chunk of yards, and they're really, really committed to that.
Yeah, and seeing the numbers, I've given up 1 rushing touchdown this season, and like I said, 109 yards. That means Cincinnati does focus on trying to stop the run, which similarly for Oklahoma, we're basically in that same boat. We haven't given up a rushing touchdown this season, and we've only given up 78 yards rushing so far. So the team, comparably, this feels like this is going to really be a defensive battle to see who does it. And so that leads us over to the offensive side. You brought in transfer Emory Jones, played at Florida. Had a rocky up and down career there, went to Arizona State, got hurt, but now he's here at Cincinnati and it looks like he's leading the way. What does the offense look like with the way Emory's playing now in his 6th season, outside of being just a super seasoned quarterback? What does that look like there for you all at Cincinnati?
So the best part of Emory Jones' game is probably his accuracy, or from at least what I've seen through 3 games. His ability to throw on the run and fit it in tight windows, especially against zone coverages, has been really, really impressive. That connection with Xavier Henderson, he came over from Florida, played with Emory for a season, 12 of 13 targets against Miami, Ohio on Saturday for, I think, somewhere around 150 yards. And then Satterfield said at his radio show on Tuesday, he said, look, we should have just thrown a fade up to him in the end zone because he's like 6'3". He's got a lot of speed. He's just a really talented player. But he has a really good deep ball as well. There were 2 throws against Miami that just missed by a half a step. But in fall camp, the deep ball was probably the best part of his game, and he was hitting it with regularity. So they like to move fast. He didn't run at all in year 5 when he was at Arizona State. And now he comes here, and they've really opened it up for him. And they say, look, your legs can really, really help us. And they want him running. There's been some read options, whether it's with a running back or a wide receiver. There's been a decent amount of QB draws. I think he scrambled for a touchdown on 3rd and 5 from the 17 against Miami. That really, I think that tied the game. So that was a huge play and showed that he has a lot of talent in a lot of different areas. He's had a few head scratching throws that have led to interceptions. One hurt against Miami, but it was a really, really good get in terms of getting a seasoned quarterback, someone that's been there and someone that's shown they're talented to come in and lead your program in year one going into a Power 5 conference.
Totally see that. And I know in the run game, as you may mention, Emory didn't really run at Arizona State. He ran at Florida, didn't run at Arizona State, and I'm assuming it was because of the injury. And then he came here and he was probably a little hesitant. Coach was like, nah, leverage that strength you have. And I watched his pocket presence against Pitt, and he was moving around pretty well in that game. But then, of course, he was handing the ball over to this bowling ball, Corey Kiner. Corey played at Florida, right? Was he a Florida player? LSU, I'm sorry. It's LSU. Yeah, that's what it was. It was LSU running back. Talk to me about the bowling ball, man. I was watching him run all over Pitt, and I was like, dang, he can scoot.
Yeah, he's a power runner, definitely. There's been 2 runs, which you've probably seen it, but against EKU, he broke one for 53, and he's running, and he just gets caught from behind because he doesn't have that breakaway speed like some of the people have. And then he did
68 against Pitt.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing against Pitt.
What you saw was this, and I was like, "Oh, they're slowly catching him. They're slowly catching him."
Peeking up at the scoreboard as he's coming to see where they're at. But his strength is he sees the holes. He has very, very, very good vision, and he's shown that in the first 2 games. Didn't have as good of a game against Miami. Ryan Montgomery really stepped up, showed his burst. He's more the third string guy behind Miles Montgomery and Corey Kiner, but Kiner's a veteran, dude. I mean, right. Luke Fickell went after him hard coming out of Roger Bacon High School in Cincinnati. And when he chose, that was right after LSU had just won the national championship. Coach O was still there. So he made a good decision going to LSU. There was a lot of hype and momentum around that program. He was there for 1 year. Coach O gets fired. He enters the portal, and it was basically a done deal that he was coming home. So struggled in year 1 with UC, but this year he's really taken it over. He's emerged as a leader, and there's a large contingency of players in this team that are from Cincinnati, and they show a lot of pride in their city, and they love playing football for their city. So I think that's what you're going to see. I think Eric Phillips, Corleone Briggs, and Deshaun Pace on the defensive side, all Cincinnati guys, and then Luke Kandra, the tackle, is a big Cincinnati guy. So, and then Kiner, obviously. So there are a lot of Cincinnati players who want to try to contribute, and Kiner is one of the best of them on this roster.
Yeah, I'm looking through this roster, man. There's a lot of kids from Cincinnati as well as just Ohio in general. Yeah. So we all know that state is very fertile grounds for recruiting. We've seen it from like the Ohio State. We know Michigan tries its hardest to steal players from down there as well, as people have been migrating out of that state. And so, there's a lot of Ohio on here, which is amazing to see that they were able to keep a lot of hometown players, make them into hometown heroes, and really grow the team from there. And so that leads right into the wide receiver room. Like you said, Emory has had some head scratching throws, while at the same time he's got a pretty nice rocket. He can throw.
Oh yeah,
I remember watching him at Florida. He can throw that ball. But Xavier, was a Henderson. Who was that caught all those touchdowns against Pitt? That was I'm trying to remember.
That was Braden Smith, number 0. Yes. Louisville transfer, really a slot guy, but super fast, has a crazy catch radius. The one you saw was probably just over the shoulder into the bucket. He dove right at the pylon, barely got, I think it was right in the end. It was one of the best throws and catches I've seen in a couple years. NFL, college level, whatever. It was that great. So he's been a huge leader. The thing about him is he's finally 100% healthy this year. At Louisville, Satterfield said that he struggled with some injuries and he wasn't able to tap into his full potential. Now he's clicking with Emory Jones. He's comfortable in this offense, and he's racking up a lot of catches, a lot of yards. And he also had I think it was a 34-yard pass in the Pitt game on the end around. And he was a quarterback in high school. So to see him throw that right in the bucket to D. Wiggins on that right side of the field wasn't really a surprise to Satterfield at all. I think he actually has 190 passing yards in his college career. So that's something to look out for. Yeah. So Satterfield is aggressive. He likes to run those trick plays. and Braden Smith can absolutely do that as a wide receiver who can throw the ball.
Oh, okay. I mean, you got big Emory Jones, throw him out there. He's 6'3" wide receiver. Put him out there, have Braden
Yeah.
Smith throw him the ball, and I see he's had some passing plays set up for him to throw. 2 touchdowns, 1 picks in his career, which is, not bad, but at the same time, it's like, wow, that's for a wide receiver. It's pretty darn good. Out of Mississippi, so it makes sense. So Satterfield, saw this press conference, and of course, these quotes, as you tweeted them, were circling around the interwebs about. I guess it's like a quote unquote beef with Dylan Gabriel. More so than anything, he said that he's held some L's and he's 0-3 against him. You think that was a good idea? Was that a good idea to poke the bear? It feels like he's poking the bear at this point.
I feel he likes to have fun. I think that's the main thing about Satterfield. He's not going to sit there and be robotic and just do coach speak just over and over again, which is something I appreciate. But I'll tell you what, that pick 6 against Dylan Gabriel when he was at UCF, the one that was the day that Sauce Gardner was born.
Yes.
That day is remembered in UC fans' eyes as one of the better days because you're still unsure about that team. I think that might have been the year after they went on the road and beat UCLA, and that was when everyone was like, okay, Desmond Ritter's here, Luke Fickell's a good coach. The next year they beat UCLA at home and then beat UCF with that pick 6. So yeah, Dylan Gabriel, he struggled in Nippert Stadium, but I mean, I think that was when he was a true freshman. So he's got a few years down now. He's in a much better system in Oklahoma, better resources, better players. And from what I've seen so far and watching the highlights today, he's thrown with confidence and he's throwing the ball very, very confidently. But I'm not going to sit here and say I don't like it when coaches make some jabs at other players and other coaches because we see it with Deion in Colorado and Colorado State. It just makes for a more entertaining game. So I'm here for it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's going to make the games even more entertaining. I mean, truth be told, this is the second team that's made that exact same comment. When we were going up against Tulsa, I was talking to the guys from the Golden Hurricast up at University of Tulsa, and they were like, well, that Dylan Gabriel's 0-2 against Tulsa, right? And I'm like, really? Okay, yeah, that is a very good point. He is UCF.
He was on a bad UCF team. I think that was when Mackenzie Milton got hurt and missed the whole year, and then Gabriel was just thrown to the wolves. So you can't really hold it against him because I don't think he was ready to lead a program like that. But, it's still something that sports media, man, you got to bring it up.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, it's fun. It's one of those you got to kind of talk about just, because it happened. He had to walk in. He took him to a 9-3 record his 1 year starting because of Mackenzie Milton, who are those unfortunate injuries that kept piling up on him. But at the same time, it was he's 0-2. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then now Satterfield saying, he's 0-3 against me. And I'm like, hey, it's a good point. All right. Hopefully, I think the difference is the weapons around. So it's going to be a fun game overall. That's no doubt about it. It's going to be good. So from there, I mean, looking at, the rest of the season as we come through, finish up everything. What did you feel like? What was the expectations going into this season for Cincinnati? I know new coach, and we both talked about tradition. Some of the coaches that have come into Cincinnati, they kind of struggle the first year when they get their grounds, get their bearings. But luckily, the transfer portal, we talked about this in the green room, the transfer portal is really changing it to where coaches can quickly flip their team around to a team that resembles what they would like to have.
Yes.
It may not be 100%, but it's a good 75 to 80%, in which it leads to moments like what Colorado's doing, starting the season off 3-0. And honestly, you all starting off the season 2-1 because, truth be told, most of the media had you all at the bottom of the Big 12 just because of that change. Once you change coaches, you change players, and it's a lot of turnover. What's your expectations starting in the season and now as the season is starting to progress?
Yeah, so I think the fans' expectations was, when the media poll comes out and we're picked 13th, and then Vegas is saying, not we, they are picked 13th, and then Vegas is saying, the over/under on wins this season is 4.5 for Cincinnati, and that's when it first came out. I think it moved to 5.5 before the season, but I think it was, if they get to a bowl game, everyone's going to be really, really satisfied because you don't really know what to expect with the roster turnover and what to expect from Satterfield, who's had kind of an up and down career, some really high highs and some lows at Louisville. But after, you stomp EKU, I'd like they beat them 66-13. I didn't expect that even like on the best day. And then as you're prepping to play Pitt, you see EKU hanging tough with Kentucky on the road, and it's like, oh crap, this team might just be pretty good because EKU had a high-powered offense. So going into the Miami game, I mean, you're expecting a 30-point win. I think I picked that one 42-7, so not my greatest prediction I've ever had in my career. But going into that game, it's like, okay, you know, Oklahoma, they're playing really good. If you were to ask me today, it's probably a loss, so that's one loss. And then, you know, Iowa State is in shambles with the gambling stuff. Baylor looks really bad. BYU was struggling to start the year against some teams. So that's 3 possible wins right there. And then match that with the first 2, you're already at 5. And then you're assuming they beat Miami, and then you're at 6. So, and then UCF comes to Nippert, which they haven't won at Nippert in a long time. That could be 7. And then it's slipping my mind who else they play. Kansas, you know, kind of shoddy. That could, because they'd come to Nippert, that could be 8. And then Oklahoma State, I mean, they got boat raced by Georgia Southern 33-7 at home, which is crazy. But
I don't understand how Oklahoma State loses to South Alabama like
South Alabama,
yeah, they get blown out by them. That's just it's awful. But no, you're right. It did, and you got Houston. So they lost to Rice.
10, 11 wins on a really good season, and then you go in and you lose to Miami, and it's okay. Whoa! The offensive line played really bad. The corner play was very bad. You have miscommunication on the first play of the game with the DBs not knowing where to be. Because there's one guy that can beat you, and then he goes 79 yards in the first play on just running straight down the field. Mm-hmm. So now there's a lot of questions that weren't questions going into that game, and that they might be answered this Saturday if Oklahoma comes in and covers the 14.5, 11.5 point spread right now.
Yep.
So this weekend will be very telling, and the attitude of this fan base is going to be very negative if Oklahoma comes in and easily beats them. But if Cincinnati can either beat Oklahoma or play them close, it's going to be okay. They can get to a bowl game, and they can still carry momentum into next season as Scott Satterfield continues to pile recruiting classes, build the team he wants here, and then attack the portal and really just, like you said, build the team that he wants to put on the field.
It's crazy. Yeah, and I'm looking at the ESPN's analytics. So, you know, they give the computers run the simulations. And they give you the percentage times of you winning the games and with all the blah, blah, blahs that go in it. Y'all really only got like 2 games that ESPN didn't think y'all going to win. So that's really good.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's Oklahoma's 1, and which will be this weekend. And I think the second one was UCF is the only one that was like questionable as far as you all winning. But overall, y'all are playing like y'all are going to win a lot of games this year.
A 9-3 victory with a 9-3 season with a wow, what the heck happened in week 3 against Miami. I think that would carry a lot of momentum. That would make fans very happy because you should have seen the message boards after that loss to Miami. The number 1 most replied, most viewed was just labeled "Fire Satterfield." So he's 3 games into his UC career, and you know we're reacting as we should be as adults. After it was a bad loss, but you know you can point to a lot of things.
Right, I was gonna say you all played a Pitt team on the road and gave it to them, and then you lose to your rival, and everybody doesn't care that you won on the road. Yeah. No one cares. You lost to a rival. That's not something that's acceptable. So I get it.
Yeah,
we would hear it too if that happened here.
I think what makes it worse is a lot of people not around the program, but fans of the program looking at the home and home contracts. They're like, this Miami rivalry might not even be worth it anymore. We might need to go somewhere else and look for a better game. And then they come in and just the quarterback rushes for like 150 yards, and they basically do whatever they want. So that's what left an even bigger stain and even worse taste in their mouth.
Yeah, that one probably ate up a lot of your ranks on your stats for the defensive side, but overall, y'all still were kicking the crap out of everybody on that end. And so, Yeah, as I look at this game, it feels like the trenches is going to be the most important position, the key thing. So what do you think is the key for Cincinnati to win this game if they have a chance?
I think it's the big plays. If you're going to let those Oklahoma wide receivers run down the field and let Dylan Gabriel just throw it up, I think they're going to have a really, really easy time scoring. The bugaboo with this team is the defensive pass interferences. So Justin Harris was called for 3 of them against Pitt in really crucial times. And it was literally just he threw up a 50-50 ball down the sideline. There was contact, and they called it. And then Harris gets called for another DPI against Miami. The next play, they throw a fade down the left sideline and catch it. So that's a 60-yard swing maybe in 2 plays. And then the next play, they throw it to the right side. Jordan Young gets called for a DPI. Then they throw a fade, touchdown. So the DPIs have been really bad. And I think that's something that Oklahoma offense is keen in on. And they're going to say, look, these guys, they can't play disciplined football in coverage. So if your first read isn't there and you see one-on-one down the sideline, just throw it up and you have a 50-50 chance that you're going to get a 30-yard gain on the flag. So I think that's the biggest key. If you can prevent the big plays and stay out of trouble in terms of defensive pass interference calls, your front 4 is going to take care of the rushing game, and you hope Dean Greshik can get 1 or 2 sacks. And then, Emory Jones is going to play smart football. I mean, this is a big game. It's going to be a big atmosphere, but that dude, he's played in some big games at Florida in front of some absolutely crazy atmospheres. So he's no stranger to the moment, and he's not really going to cower down from that Oklahoma atmosphere. But nothing, because I thought they were going to go in and beat Miami 42-7, and then they come out losing. So trying to predict everything is a fool's game at this point, but I think it's defensive pass interference calls and big play susceptibility, which Brian Brown continues to talk about as a struggle with this defense.
No, I totally get it. And predictions are tough. So yeah, we do them because you got to, because it's always fun if you're right.
I almost want to retire after last week.
Yeah. So bad. Hit you with the no. Yeah. Nope, I'm not. Don't want to touch it. So
yeah.
Keegan, let the people know where they can find you. I appreciate you pulling up. Tell them where they can find you and all your great content so they can get some reading on about the Bearcats.
Yeah, so I dropped an article that I liked today. It was on Scott Satterfield. How he opened his college career at Appalachian State in 2014 as a head coach. He went 1-5, 52-14 loss to Michigan, and then, funnily enough, the first competitive game in Week 3 against Southern Miss, went down with 2 minutes, scored a touchdown to make it 20-21. Point after attempt blocked. They lose the game with 6 seconds left. So you start 1-5, rattle off 6 straight conference victories to finish 7-5. So it's kind of on, he didn't let those first 6 games define him, and he's going to try his best not to let Miami define him. It was a fun story that I enjoyed writing. But you can find it, Bearcat Journal. Just search Bearcat Journal. It'll take you to Cincinnati 247 Sports. And then follow me on Twitter. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love the Oklahoma and Texas fan bases. I think they're so lunatics. Passionate and they're so lunatics. Insane at the same time, which I can very much appreciate. Lunatics. Well, I graduated from Indiana, so that basketball fan base is
y'all are lunatics too. So that's fair.
Yeah, it's very, very fair.
No, that's good. Keegan, thanks again. I really appreciate it. Make sure you go check them out. Follow, check out some of the articles. I actually pulled up that Scott Satterfield article. I'm going to definitely dive into it later today. But, man, thanks again for pulling up.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Jake.
Once again, shout out to Keegan from the BearcatJournal.com, part of the 247 Sports site. Please make sure you go like and subscribe to their YouTube channel. Also, go check out Keegan's writing. He does some fantastic stuff there on the 247 channel. If you're a Bearcats fan, thank y'all for pulling up. If you want to talk college ball with your boy, please hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and join this college football family. We talk a lot of OU football, but we also expand out into Colorado and other bits of college football in general. And so, thanks for pulling up. YouTube says watch one of these videos. I highly recommend it. Why? Because I curated it for you. So, check it out. We'll talk soon. Peace.